2022 meeting of the Council of City of Springdale. I would ask that you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Ms. McNear, you do roll call.
Mr. Anderson?
Present.
Mrs. Gantos? Here. Mr. Hawkins?
Present.
Mr. Jacobs?
Present.
Mr. Ramirez?
Present.
Mrs. Sullivan-Weiscup?
Present.
Mr. Vanover?
Present. All right, Council, first thing this evening, we have the minutes of our March 16th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All right, all those approving the minutes as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved with 7 affirmative votes. All right, Ms. McNear, are there any communications this evening?
Yes, I do have one item. This is it was an email dated April 1st, 2022, and it's addressed to dear Springdale City Council members. We recently attended the Tri-County Mall redevelopment public engagement meeting on March 23rd to hear about the new developments. We were excited to hear about the transformation that is planned for the shell of the mall. The drawings showed some exciting new ideas. Bringing in the new entertainment, breweries, and restaurants could really vitalize the city. However, when the part about relocating the community center came up, the excitement of this new development raised serious concerns. On paper, building a fitness center in this new area does have some appeal, as the plan is to have quite a few new residents living in the apartments above. The new developments to that area will bring in new residents and new businesses, and having an on-site fitness center would attract potential residents and companies. However, relocating the entire community center to this new area does not make any sense. The challenges and issues we see regarding moving the community center are: not all residents will feel welcomed and have space at the proposed location. The draft plan presented at the March 23rd meeting includes 2 fewer gym courts, no game room, no club rec space, no teen fitness space, no child watch, no family playrooms, no batting cages, no racquetball courts, and no playground. At a glance, the community is losing facilities we have now and not replacing them with updated options. The main focus of this new facility is an enormous fitness center that is focused on the seniors and active athletes without children, not a community center used for recreation. Indoor pools replace the current outdoor pool, though with limited deck space for teams and families when using the space for recreation or swim needs. The outdoor pool deck allows gathering of families and friends enjoying concessions and socializing while members are swimming. There is also not enough room in the planned indoor pool for the swim team families nor the opposing team to cheer on their swimmers. The response given at the engagement meeting when this concern was raised was that the team and spectators would have to move to one of our gyms, which would not allow the parents to watch their children swim. This will also really limit the availability of the already reduced gymnasium space, and it would create issues of potential water damage to the brand-new gymnasium floor. Another issue that an indoor pool creates is that while one child is in swim lessons, the parent and younger siblings wait for their child to finish lessons will have nowhere to go, as there is no playground or other kid-friendly amenities in the plans. Finally, the large draw of an outdoor pool for being in the sunshine during the summer months is completely lost in these plans. Community center being integrated with commerce. There are not many places left in the world where you can go out and not be expected to buy something. Community centers, parks, and libraries immediately come to mind as places like this, and those should be protected. With the new developments of this residential spaces and proposed new businesses being brought in, the income and property taxes brought in by these new developments should pay for the updating or replacement of a new community center. There is no need to do a full relocation and a revision of the current community center to solely appease the new development. Excuse me. Community center being placed in the middle of a proposed designated outdoor refreshment area, DORA. Permitted open containers and consumption of alcohol year-round. There was even a concern about this raised at the meeting. Some families feel like they would be taking their families to a bar instead of a community center. The current development includes a brewery, a concert stage, and several restaurants. This sounds like a wonderful idea for a one-stop entertainment facility. However, trying to incorporate a community center in which young children, teens, and seniors are also trying to do recreational activities will be a clash of differing interests that should not mix. Safe access to the site will be a challenge. The mall site is surrounded by 6 to 8 lanes of traffic, and inside the mall site there will also be vehicular traffic. For residents at the site, this is less of a challenge, but keeping in mind that this is not an additional fitness center for just the new residents at the site, but the new community center for all Springdale. Walking or biking to the community center will be extremely dangerous across all lanes of traffic without a safe corridor or infrastructure in place to get there. Another point that was brought up was the increased influx of traffic this would impose. With no plans of improving the current infrastructure, there will be an increased amount of traffic for those wanting to visit the area for the entertainment value in the community center, all being directed to one location. This will make navigating the area a logistical nightmare for the proposed site and for the normal throughway of traffic to access the other businesses in the surrounding areas. Facilities will be split. Outdoor ball fields and possibly the walking track will remain at the current community center site, though may be reconfigured or improved. This means less opportunities for those casual connections that happen at community centers, as well as more driving and less options for the rest of the family for scheduled events. Again, this is a logistical nightmare for families with multiple children who may have one child participating in a sport while the other is playing in a gymnasium, pool, or playground. This will also mean divided maintenance among two parks and facilities of the bathrooms, buildings, and grounds. To summarize, the current plan the developers and the city of Springdale have proposed for the new community center is not meeting the current needs of the families of Springdale. It is self-serving the developers' needs of making a fitness center to attract new residents to fulfill their promises. While they court the city with promises of young professionals who could potentially afford the housing, it is excluding a large number of residents that fit the current socioeconomic diversity that Springdale is well known for. While it is understandable that the city of Springdale would like to solve the issues of a crumbling, costly community center with a shiny new community center, the city needs to acknowledge that this center has been planned and developed by an outside source that has no investment or interest in the needs of the citizens. Please consider these points while you make this vote on behalf of the citizens you serve. Sincerely, Kelly and Sharon Cardona, 11824 Noose Avenue. That's all I had this evening.
All right. Mayor Webster, I understand you have a presentation.
This is a kickoff for the proclamation season.
There we go.
Probably have one a meeting for the next month or so here. But anyway, this is a very, very important one. Whereas started in 1985, National Public Health Week takes place each year during the first week of April to recognize the important contributions public health makes to our nation. National Public Health Week also highlights issues that are important to creating a healthy future. And whereas the Springdale Health Department works to prevent disease and promote good health within the city of Springdale, Ohio, and whereas since 1974, the Springdale Health Department has created and supported a strong public health system that engages residents and community partners to foster a healthier community. And whereas a hallmark of the Springdale Health Department is extensive cooperation among the wide range of public and private sector partners. And whereas over the last year, the Springdale Health Department has assisted the residents of the city of Springdale in their efforts to withstand and recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas in April, the nation celebrates National Public Health Week to recognize the important role that public health departments play in sustaining and improving community health to create a brighter future. And whereas the Springdale Health Department is committed to ensuring that Springdale families are healthy, and its cooperative efforts with individuals, families, community partners, and policymakers to promote good health among future Springdale generations. Now therefore, I, Doyle H. Webster, Mayor of the City of Springdale, do hereby proclaim April 4th through April 10th, 2022 as National Public Health Week in the City of Springdale and commend this observation to our citizens. So, Mr. Clayton, if you'd step forward. Step out here so we can get a picture, of course.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, thank you. Want to state that your support throughout the pandemic, which began in March of 2020, has been critical to the Springdale Health Department's success and our successful address of COVID. I'm sure everyone has heard that the Center for Disease Control and the Ohio Department of Health have recently approved the use of a fourth COVID booster dose. This dose is recommended for individuals who are 50 and over with a compromised immunity, and for everyone who's 65 years of age and older. Springdale Health will provide the booster dose on Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 12:45 p.m., starting next Thursday, April 13th, 2022. To register for the COVID booster, please visit the gettheshot.coronavirus.ohio.gov website or call 1-833-4-ASK-ODH, and they will get you signed up. We do have the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the Johnson & Johnson boosters available. Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clayton. All right, at this point, we'll open the floor for communications from the audience. Is there anybody in the audience like to address council for any reason? Second call. Third and final call. We'll close communications from the audience. Council, the first thing we have this evening is ordinance number 10, 2022. This is a second reading, and it does have a public hearing attached. So, Ms. McNear, if you do the reading, please.
Ordinance number 10, 2022, an ordinance approving a major modification to the Tri-County Commons Plan Unit Development and improving the preliminary development plan for the property located at 600 Kemper Commons Circle. Whereas the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, Council has previously approved the Tri-County Commons Plan Unit Development, PUD, and whereas the applicant has submitted an application for a major modification to the Tri-County Commons PUD and preliminary development plan at 600 Kemper Commons Circle for the location of a U-Haul facility. And whereas at its meeting of February 8th, 2022, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed major modification. And whereas a public hearing was held by council on April, this is 6th, making a quick change here on the document, pursuant to the requirements of the zoning code. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, the major modification to the Tri-County Commons PUD and the preliminary development plan, which has been reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission in accordance with the exhibits listed and described in Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference, is hereby approved, subject to the conditions of the Planning Commission. Section 2, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that the Clerk of Council Finance Director is hereby authorized and directed to notify the applicant of council's action. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
All right, at this point then, we'll open the public hearing. Do we have a presentation?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Today I have the presentation that was presented to Planning Commission, which they made the recommendation. Essentially, I'll go to the map first. We have the Tri-County Mall here on the west. We have Kemper Commons, which is here. And this building right here, which is the old Walmart, is the building that U-Haul is proposing to renovate and occupy. They are proposing to, if you can see my cursor, build a new outbuilding down here on the south side of the site, which will be what they call their pod, or their version of a pod sales unit. Their truck and storage will then be behind that new building in an effort to try to meet the zoning requirements to keep the trucks behind the building. It's not going to eliminate visibility, but it's going to significantly keep the trucks behind the building, which is what the zoning code says. If you recall, we had the same presentation for the, help me out here, the Champion
Old
window.
Champion windows.
And the big issue with both the Planning Commission and the council was the visibility of the vehicles. This new site does a couple of different things. It takes an existing building that is in need of a new occupant, and they're going to renovate the building and add a new building and make it look nice. So I have some simple elevations. I don't want to take up too much time of yours unless you want to. Here's that new little building out front. This is the existing building. This is the existing building from Kemper. This is how they plan to renovate it. And a lot of these are simply signs. None of these are actual doors or windows. Try to get closer for you. And then the new building that's going to be out front is going to look like this. One more. There. This is the existing view. This is the proposed view. So this will be the predominant feature as you're driving by Kemper Road. As I said, Planning Commission's already heard and asked questions in the presentation from the owner. The owner is here to answer any questions if you need to, if there is any. And with that, I'll close.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this topic, either for or against? Second call. Third and final call. We'll close the public hearing. All right, council, you've heard the reading. This is a second reading. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Mayor Webster?
Yeah, what's going to be housed in that outlot?
In this building on the south side is going to be the pods that they will truck to your site. You can fill them up there, fill them up with your goods and materials, and then they'll haul them back to this building and store them in this building for you, in your container, in the container they let you rent. That makes sense? I mean,
Yeah.
the pod, they'll bring it out to your house, drop it on your driveway, let you fill it. And then they'll come and get the pod and bring it back to their facility and store it. And the existing use inside the existing building will now be interior storage. And they're gonna have their corporate offices here that they propose to have at the Champion site.
Mr. Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to confirm, where would trucks, vehicles, what have you, be parked? Are they going to be in between those two in that parking lot, or are they going to be
In
back
between this,
behind there?
yeah, right back here. You'll be able to see them because it's all on angles,
Okay.
but the trucks will be back behind this front building. And as you drive down, if you, I don't forget the name of the lane, I think probably Commons Drive. If you drive down Commons Drive, you'll be able to see all their vehicles because they'll be in this parking lot right here.
Do you have an idea how much of the parking lot they're going to take up? I don't know how many vehicles they have.
100%.
They're going to take up the whole thing?
Yes, sir.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So this is another thing I failed to mention is this is going to be a regional facility where they'll bring trucks in and repair them in the back and take them back for regular service and take them back to the other sites around the city.
So I'm sure Planning Commission's already gone over this.
Yes, sir,
But
they have.
in terms of how much space is there going to be for customer parking based on how
I have a
much
plan for
trucks?
that. It'll take me a second to get to it, but there is a plan that will show that. See if I can find it real quick. There we go. The truck parking is back here on the right. The customer parking is along the street and here along the front of the building. So these, I think 3 or 4, maybe this one too, is customer parking, and then all the truck parking is over here.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramirez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. As a member of planning, I just want to point out a few things that we had a lot of discussion on, and one which caused us to really put negative view on the Sofa Express location is the location of the vehicles all saying U-Haul on them, and it looked like big advertising because it was out near the Express, out near 275. With this location, the difference being because the elevation change, it'll be down so low, as you're driving down Kemper Road, you will not be able to see the vehicles parked there. So that was the biggest thing. Some of the other things we talked about were how it looks like they have a bunch of garage doors, and those are just decoration. They're really not garage doors. And we had a long discussion, and I think it's 7-0 vote. We're in favor of this location versus 6. We had 6 there. Everybody voted yes. So it was a positive plus for us to say, yes, this is a good location, it's a good purpose, and we think Planning Commission thought it was a good plan for that location. Thank you.
Mr. Jacobs?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clarify, so if I'm looking at that map, we're saying that wedge to the left, that whole thing will be filled with trucks? That, kind of triangular shape? With an exception for maybe some customer
With the
parking?
exception for customer parking, yes, sir.
Okay.
Customer parking will be on the west side and along the road.
And my second question, you may not be able to answer. The previous owners of that property, I randomly would notice over the years, there was razor wire across the top of that building. Does anybody know why there was razor wire on top of that
There was
building?
razor wire there due to vandalism,
Okay.
and the new tenant is proposing to remove all the razor wire.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Still in discussion? All right, Ms. McNair, will you poll council?
Mrs. Sullivan Weiscup?
Aye.
Mrs. Gantos? Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Ramirez?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye. Ordinance number 10, 2022 passes with 7 affirmative votes. And next up is ordinance number 11, 2022. This also is a second reading. So, Ms. McNair, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 11, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and clerk of council, finance director, to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Attorney General's office for the collection of unpaid funds owed to the city of Springdale. Whereas the city of Springdale, the city seeks to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Attorney General's office regarding the collection of unpaid taxes and any other funds owed to the city which are capable of being collected through the Ohio Attorney General's office. Now therefore be it ordained by the council, the city of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, Council of the City of Springdale. Council agrees to authorize the mayor and clerk of council, finance director, to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Attorney General's office regarding the collection of unpaid funds for the City of Springdale and any other city debts that may be capable of being collected through the Ohio Attorney General's office, the agreement. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect at the earliest period allowed by law.
All right, council, we've heard the reading of ordinance number 11, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick point for clarification, because I think it happened after the last meeting. There was a question, I think from a resident, Mr. Coleman, about a minimum amount for collection, and I think at the time we thought there wasn't a minimum. I think upon review we found that it's a $100 principal balance, so I just wanted to make sure that was on the record, that we're correcting that. Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. And along those lines, just two questions of curiosity. The first one, sort of piggybacking on the comment that Mr. Anderson made with regard to Exhibit A. There are some things that are listed that we cannot, or that this will not certify debt as. Is there is there any process that we have in terms of collecting those items? If it's not through the Attorney General?
Mr. Braun?
Yeah, we contract with a third party to do that. And what we're trying to avoid is having everything go to a third party where we're charged a fee, where they take a portion of it. Here, they pass that on to the debtor.
And then the other question, how fast will this take place? I know we get weekly payments based on the debt, but how quickly will this take effect?
Well, we can start sending things to them immediately, but I can only speak from my experience in other communities, and it varies. Obviously, it's subject to the fact that they do a high volume of these. I can tell you that during COVID, it kind of decreased in some of our communities, and it's on the uptick again. So I think that it will vary. My hope is, as I think I indicated last time, when people get a letter from the Attorney General's office, they'll respond to it quicker than ABC collection, knowing that it's affiliated with the Attorney General's office. So I think we would certainly be in a position, and I'll mention to Mr. Williams to maybe give you an update on what kind of a return we're seeing, maybe after a short period of time, to see if it's improved. But I think it's something we'll have to watch.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs?
Is there any sense from anyone, Is there any sense from anyone why the state is willing to provide this service? I'm still not clear what they're getting out of it. I have a healthy dose of distrust in terms of Columbus. Over the years, they've tried to try to chip away at home rule. What's the Attorney General getting out of this? Do we have, and then beyond that, are a lot of communities taking advantage of this? It seems like a great deal. I'm not opposed to it. I can't see how the Attorney General wins here. Why are they doing this?
I think the most obvious thing is that comes to mind is that they're passing on the charge. So if they're collecting $100, they may actually collect $125. They'll keep $25, and we'll get to $100. So they're going to make money off of it. As we all know, the government does nothing for free.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, can I add one more thing? Just for clarification, we spend a fair amount of time trying to collect ourselves, whatever that fee may be, for whether it be taxes or damage to our trees or some kind of light pole or whatever it may be. Once we've exhausted what we can do, then we would be turning it over, once we have failed to be successful in our collections. Thank you.
Very good. All right, I don't see any more lights. Ms. McNear, your full counsel.
Mrs. Sullivan Weisskopf.
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Mrs. Ganthos. Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mr. Ramirez.
Aye.
Mr. Vanover.
Aye. Ordinance number 11, 2022 passes with 7 affirmative votes. And next up is, excuse me, ordinance number 12, 2022. It does include an emergency clause. Ms. McNear, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 12, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and clerk of council, finance director, to execute a First Amendment to the development agreement and ancillary development-related documents, including deeds with respect to the Tri-County Mall redevelopment project, and declaring an emergency. Whereas MSC PHJV LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, the developer, and the city of Springdale have entered into a development agreement dated December 30th, 2021, the development agreement pertaining to the redevelopment of real property located at 11700 Princeton Road within the city of Springdale and generally known as Tri-County Mall, the project site, into multi-phasic mixed-use redevelopment, including multifamily residential, commercial, retail, and potentially governmental uses as more fully set forth in the development agreement, the project. And then, whereas pursuant to the terms of the development agreement and in order to facilitate the creation of a tax increment financing area under Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.41, the TIF Act, the developer will sell and convey the project site to the city, and immediately thereafter, the city will reconvey the project site to the developer. And where since the date of the development agreement and the developer has procured a more accurate description of the project site, and whereas in order to update the legal description of the project site, to facilitate the transfer of the project site to advance the purposes of the development agreement, to correct certain or errata in the development agreement, and to make certain other modifications as more fully set forth therein, the city and the developer wish to execute a First Amendment to the development agreement in substantially the form attached to this ordinance as Exhibit A, hereinafter the First Amendment. And whereas the city has determined that it is in the best interest of the city to enter into the First Amendment to the development agreement and consummate the transactions set forth therein, because the city will receive substantial economic and non-economic benefits from the project, and that the project will create jobs, stimulate economic growth in the city, increase the city's housing stock, and enable the project site to be put in its highest and best use for the benefit of the people of the city. And whereas Section 13 of Article 8 of the Ohio Constitution provides that to create or preserve jobs and employment opportunities and to improve the economic welfare of the people of the state, it is a public interest and proper public purpose for the state or its political subdivisions to lend aid or credit for industry, commerce, distribution, and research. And whereas Section 16 of Article 8 of the Ohio Constitution provides that it is in the public interest and proper public purpose for the city to enhance the availability of the adequate housing and to improve economic and general well-being of the people of the city by providing or assisting in providing housing. And whereas the city believes that the project will promote urban redevelopment in the city, it is in the vital and best interest of the city and the health, safety, and welfare of its residents, and in accordance with the public purposes and provisions of applicable federal, state, and local laws and requirements. And whereas pursuant to its powers granted under Article 8C3 of the city's charter, Council has determined that it is acceptance from and reconveyance to the developer of the project site in accordance with the terms of the development agreement as amended by the First Amendment thereto is proper and in the best interest of the city, because of such conveyances are necessary for the redevelopment of the project site. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the recitals to this ordinance are incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that the mayor and clerk of council, finance director are hereby authorized to execute the First Amendment to development agreement with the developer in substantially the form as attached at Exhibit A. Section 3, pursuant to the development agreement as amended by the First Amendment, Council 1 finds that the city is engaging in urban redevelopment consistent with the meaning of the Ohio Revised Code, Section 5709.41, and 2, authorizes the city to accept title to the project site and to promptly thereafter reconvey the same to the developer or its designee in order to facilitate the subsequent creation of a real property tax exemption for the project site under Ohio Revised Code, Section 5709.41. Section 4, that council authorizes the appropriate city officials to take all necessary and proper actions to fulfill the terms of this ordinance and development agreement, the First Amendment, and all other project-related documents described in the development agreement as amended by the First Amendment, including but not limited to execution by the mayor and clerk of council, finance director of any service agreement described therein necessary to secure the bonds as more fully defined in the development agreement. 2, any cooperative agreements described therein necessary to effect the pledge of the service payments in lieu of taxes resulting from the project TIF to an Ohio Port Authority issuing the bonds. And 3, the quitclaim deed from the city conveying the project site back to the developer or its designee as set forth in the First Amendment, and all ancillary agreements, amendments, property deeds, plats, and other documents to create new encumbrances, retain existing city easements, and release existing encumbrances on the title to the project site, all as deemed necessary or appropriate by the mayor. Section 6, that it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of council concerning and related to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22. Section 7, this ordinance shall take effect at the earliest date allowed by law. Section 8, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall be subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the immediate need to enable the parties to execute the First Amendment to the development agreement as soon as possible so that the developer can promptly move forward with the project, thereby creating a significant economic benefit and enhancement to the city at the earliest possible time.
All right, council, have heard the reading of ordinance number 12, 2022. What is your pleasure? Motion second, discussion. Mr. Braun?
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just advise members of council, you'll see in front of you the exhibits that have been amended to the development agreement. This is a collective effort of the Developers Council, my office, and primarily the Hamilton County Tax Map Office. There were some changes that were made to the legal descriptions of the property that ultimately encompasses the entire mall property. It was important that we have you approve this amended development agreement in anticipation of additional legislation that will come at your next meeting related to the creation of a TIF. When you originally approved the development agreement, there was a legal description that was on there. Multiple parties noticed that there were some discrepancies in those legal descriptions. Those have now, as of yesterday, this is fresh, finally been approved by Hamilton County. Everything is included that will need to be included so we get the full value of our TIF. So that's the primary change that was made to the development agreement. There was a couple other minor tweaks. We swapped out the fact that it's a Delaware LLC that the developer is using, and a couple things that, again, are buried within these legal descriptions. So we're correcting that original legislation that you already approved, and then this same legal description you'll find in the TIF legislation that we anticipate coming at the next meeting. Mr. Gupta and myself are both here if you have any questions about it, but I will tell you the changes that were made in the legal description are nothing short of boring, but they're extremely important when it comes to us getting all the revenue we want out of that TIF once it's formed. So that's a short way of telling you why we need to amend it.
Thank you. Still in discussion? All right, Ms. McNear, poll council.
Mrs. Gantos? Aye. Mrs. Sullivan Weisskopf?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Ramirez?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye. Ordinance number 12, 2022 passes with 7 affirmative votes. At this point, we'll move into old business. Is there any old business to bring before council this evening? All right. Seeing none, new business? Mr. Webster?
Thank you, Mr. President. Early last year, as all of you know, Costco announced that they were closing their Springdale store. And a lot of people in Springdale shop there. And we got a lot of feedback regarding that. And that was strictly Costco's decision. The city had nothing to do with it. But anyway, so then along come July, I guess it was, and the people from Texas hit town and had this bright, shiny new development. And I said to anybody that listened to me, I said, it's a damn shame that didn't get here first, because I think that may have prohibited Costco, it would make them rethink their position and stay in Springdale. So, great news. Costco is not going to close their store.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Now, however, they will be temporary closing the store. Once the Liberty Township store opens, they'll have a temporary closing. They're going to reduce the store, make some renovations and some changes in it. So there will be a temporary closure there, but they will continue to have a presence in the city of Springdale. So I think that's just one of the many positive fallouts we're going to have with this development. Sure. Talking to Andy today, we've got some other calls, some other feelers, and so I think we're going to get a lot of great benefit out of this.
Ms. McNear?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was at Costco the other day. You couldn't buy a parking spot.
Is that right?
It was terrible. And as I got out of I was loading my car up, I was turning around to take my cart to the corral, and the lady who pulled in next to me said, "Hey, I'll take that cart," which is a good thing, because there were no carts available in the store. It was a madhouse. So she and I talked a little bit about the fact that it was closing, so I wish I'd known that information, that I could tell her that. But she was irate that the store was closed, and she says, "I'll just go to Sam's because I'm not driving up to Liberty Township to shop." So that's really good news. I'm happy if they're staying. Thank you.
Ms. Gantos?
Thank you, Mr. President. Any word on the Showcase Cinemas? We know nothing?
Do you have any later information, Andy?
The most recent update I had was probably 3 months ago at least, 3 to 4 months ago, that they were still looking at trying to sell off the excess parking area, about 17 acres, up to Crescentville Road. And they had kind of entertained a lot of proposals from developers throughout the region who were looking at a variety of uses. We were kind of directing them towards what it was already zoned for, which was light industrial, kind of distribution warehouse facilities like the Commerce Park. And I haven't heard anything since. So I know that the Showcase ownership was really being very particular about the use that could go in there and about the screening and the new entrance that would come in and access the movie theater. They did not want to detract from the appearance of that overall development area with industrial buildings that didn't look appealing. So they were really, I think, putting the screws to any developers in terms of the landscaping requirements and the screening and all that. So I don't know where it's at. I know that these things can go silent for 6 months, 9 months, a year, and then and they won't really have any updates for us, and then they'll call us up one day and say we're ready to go. So it's kind of in that limbo period right now, I think.
They called us up today.
Oh, well. Just ask Carl.
I received a call from a design professional planning to propose a new industrial facility, a warehousing sort of thing on the north parking lot of the Showcase Cinemas. That's brand new today. He's the guy that knows now.
So that's on the 17 acres that Andy's referring to?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
They asked me for a meeting for Monday, and I couldn't make Monday, so we're shooting for Thursday. So it looks like that's on a fast track to happen as well.
Good, thanks.
I mean, this is another building, just for additional comment. This is another building just like the buildings at Springdale Commerce Park, which I hope you know that we've received the next 2 buildings already for submittal to Planning Commission. So they're going to plan to start the construction of those 2 other buildings for Springdale Commerce Park this year. That's another plus.
All right. Thank you, Carl. All right, we're still in new business? All right, meetings and announcements. Ms. Weisskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning Commission will meet in these chambers at 7 p.m. on next Tuesday, April 12th.
Mr. Anderson?
1 second, hang on, I'll look up the date. I know we have a Board of Zoning Appeal meeting for the first time this year. I believe we have something on the calendar. I believe it's April 26th at 7 o'clock in these chambers. We're back for the first time this year.
Mr. Yule?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder, our second community engagement session will occur on Wednesday, April 13th at 6:30 p.m. at the Community Center in the auxiliary gym.
All right, don't see any more lights. Mr. Hawkins, we'll go to you for an update on legislation still in development. Oh, I'm sorry. I moved my marker too quick. At this point, we'll go back to the floor for communications from the audience. Anybody in the audience like to address council? Second call? Third and final call? All right, Mr. Hawkins, it's on you.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you review your internal memorandums, item number 1 was addressed with ordinance number 10, 2022, an ordinance approving a major modification to the Tri-County Commons Plan Unit Development and approving the preliminary development plan for the property located at 600 Kemper Commons Circle. That passed the 7-0 vote. Item number 2 was addressed with ordinance number 11, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and clerk of council finance director to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Attorney General's office for the collection of unpaid funds owed to the city of Springdale, and that passed the 7-0 vote. Item number 3 was addressed with ordinance number 12, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the execution of the First Amendment to the development agreement with respect to the Tri-County Mall redevelopment project, the execution of an ancillary related documents, and declaring an emergency. That passed the 7-0 vote. All other matters were forthcoming.
All right, and, excuse me, then a recap of legislative items requested for our next council meeting.
There's a request for an ordinance declaring improvements to real property to be public purpose, declaring such property to be exempt from real property taxation, and declaring an emergency. There's also request for an ordinance authorizing the mayor and clerk of council finance director to enter into an agreement with TEC Engineering Incorporated for the provision of professional services for the operations and maintenance of the city of Springdale's traffic control system and declaring an emergency. And that's it unless there's anything else from council or the administration.
Administration, we good? All right. We have item 14 before us.
Move to adjourn.
Council's adjourned.